LinkedIn. We're live again here with our sundown every Tuesday. The Smarter Sales, Smarter Growth, Sales Made live podcast. And here with me every week, the man in the red shirt, the smartest guy on the planet, the growth hacker, Mr. P. I'm so happy that you're here with me. Like a lot of customers, it's important for them, obviously, that we're not talking theory and they don't hear something from an author or sales coach or whatever. And so the entrepreneurial perspective is very interesting. And you're founding companies, you're building them up. And today we have a topic that is, I found it's one of the hardest topics. So typically when I talk with sales professionals, this gets them through the roof, right? I talk about irresistible offers, they freak out. So this is an interesting discussion. And I expect a lot of value for our audience. So the headline of this discussion is Irresistible Offers in Business. Is it complete crap? Or is it like the thing that will save all of us and solve all of our marketing and sales issues? And we're like super happy to have you here, Patrick. And we're looking to get some insights from you. And a rephrased version of the question would be, do you think there's a difference between products and offers?
Yeah, thank you for the amazing start, Max. I'm also very happy to be here again. Almost every Thursday we meet. We're supposed to meet every Thursday, but sometimes you're just a very, very busy man. I can understand, because I would want your counsel as well, as I had the chance to get a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Completely changed my sales method. But yeah, let's get to the answer to the question. The question's gone. Is it a myth? Or
yeah, we're talking irresistible offers. Are they a myth or the holy grail of sales and marketing? And I know from our introductory discussion that you have your own perspective. That's beautiful. And the question, and a good question to get closer to the topic would be: is there a difference between a product and an offer, from your perspective? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, I think we have to look at this question from different perspectives. But in general, the answer to your question is easy. I think, is the product or the offer different? It can be, and in certain situations should be very different. Take what you offer, or your product is obviously part of the offer, but the offer potentially can contain many, many more things that I think also sometimes people neglect. For instance, the services that come with the offer that make the product at customers very successful. Other things that come with your offer, I've actually just picked it up today in one of the podcasts I was listening. That was one thing we usually don't consider as part of the offer is the actual contract. So there are companies who start to not sign any contracts anymore. They say, hey, you can leave anytime. You can go out of this contract anytime. We don't care. You can say us today and you leave. That's part of our offering, basically. It's based on, and it makes sense. It's based on a pain point of that you had in the past, that you were, you missed the deadline to cancel the contract and had to stay for another year. Because you missed the deadline for 5 days or something like that. So that grew out of a pain point. So I think what we should discuss today, Max, is how are you able to compile that irresistible offer individually with your customers? Because I think, especially in difficult enterprise sales, there is not one irresistible offer. For consumers, you can, and you have an example there, and I think you should mention that example with Domino's Pizza, B2C example. And we should also consider, on the other hand, the big enterprise sales deals, which are really dependent on what's the need of the customer, what are the pain points in the past. I just figure out what were the pain points that people who buy from you had in the past. If somebody had a pain that they could not get out of a contract, maybe the irresistible offer should contain something that regarding the contract, a clause that you can leave any time, or no contract at all, which I heard today, but that was the first time actually also for me. So yeah, let's dig into that. How do you build your perfect and your irresistible offer? And I think you should start with or you should also quickly say that example that was intriguing.
Yeah, it's interesting, like you say, that this idea of having irresistible offers, I think what people struggle with is it puts you in a corner, right? So what is necessary to make irresistible offers? It almost sounds like NLP or some manipulation game, right? So there's this notion that if you make irresistible offers, you're actually taking people hostage, right? And that puts us in this bad sales corner where salespeople actually take from their customers, right? They take away stuff. And the idea behind the term is quite the opposite. It comes out of this book here. This is where I know it from. It's a book by Mark Joyner. This is you cannot get the original. You have to, like me here, buy a used copy if you want to read it. And it's interesting. The idea is if you're open to it, right? Then the question is, how can you make if you create a package and you put your product in, like you said, what else needs to be in there? That's an important question. And then once you have a good idea of what you want to put in there, and most people put too much in, right? That's also interesting. So pull stuff out and make it a minimal viable offer, if you will. We call it the MIO, right? Like a million to just add oil to the fire here. So what can you put in, and how can you make this offer more compelling? That's the main point. How can you make your offer more compelling? A lot of people sell features. We've been there, right? I mean, we are visiting this topic like every Tuesday, right? How do we explain technology better? How can we explain the value, the results, what are the changes that you will see in your business if you use this stuff, right? And so forth. But also, how can we get the customer to do the change management, for instance? Like most customers actually, pardon my French, they suck at implementing our stuff, and that's not a surprise actually, because they do it for the first time. So the idea is like, and I know that you have a ton of experience there. What can you do with that offer to make it even more compelling, right? And my theory, that's my bet I'm taking here, right? Call me out if we don't get there. My bet is if you do enough of that stuff that makes it more compelling, it will become pretty hard to resist. And then you will see that your sales efforts are creating much better returns, much better results. It will be a lot easier for you to get people to trust you to take the remaining risk and so forth. That's the corridor we're looking at. And I would say what's brutally interesting for our audience here is from your practical perspective, like enterprise sales, B2B in business, real talk, right? What can you do to make an offer more compelling?
Yeah, first of all, I think the most important, the key factor to make it compelling in the first place is a compelling business case. So obviously that's sometimes easy to say or to state, but in the end, it's for many companies struggle to actually build a good business or business case. It should be a good business case should be quantifiable. So there needs to be there. You need to excel in discovery, in finding out and going deep into the challenge of the customer, ask them a lot of good challenging questions for them, The harder it is to answer the questions, the better your questions are. That's actually a good measurement you can take when you ask a question and the customer needs to think for like 5, 10 seconds. Don't rush in. We learned that we also had a lot of these experiences as well, right, Max? That we rush and try to reformulate the question because we think, oh no, the question was a bad question, but actually that's a good one. So you need to find out what impact it has when you come from the current state to the to be state, to the state you want to go. An example: I had a call 2 or 3 weeks ago where we found out that the process that we currently automate is done by a customer 0.5 FTEs, and the FTE costed 60,000 a year plus 10% costs. Like the total cost were about 65 to 70,000 a year. So that's now 0.5%, right? We are around 30,000 that we can, with our technology, automate completely. Now, I think an offer below the cost of this 30,000 is very compelling, right? If there is not more, maybe you have even more that you can bring into the value. But most important thing, create the value first. Establish value first. Establish first the situation, the value, the impact from the customer side, and then you can, based on the value you just understood, you can make a cost calculation for your product that is already quite compelling. But sometimes that's not enough, right, Max? Because some companies, they really don't like the risk because they had so many implementations that didn't work out. So there's a lot of pain out there with a lot of tools that have been implemented. So I guess, Max, you know what I mean, right? What could be a very important ingredient? You were talking about it before. One important ingredient in the irresistible offer, besides the compelling business case.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a game changer for a lot of organizations we work with, because it's the first change in perspective, right? I mean, at some point, customers will ask you, and it depends on if we look at the stack, right? A customer from top to bottom, and from bottom to the top. Some tech organizations we work with are pretty infrastructural. Some are more on the platform level. Some are in the apps and software space. Some are dealing with business processes. Some are dealing with the strategy. And the higher you move here, the more likely is that your customers are permanently asking for return on invest and business cases, use cases, and so forth. A lot of tech organizations, a lot of engineers, they are like more concerned with the base, the foundation. And they don't get to hear this that often. And as a reason, that's interesting, they sell too inexpensive. So a lot of offers are in reply to tenders and so forth. And then typically you have a lot of price pressure, and your offers get more complex and so forth. Like the classical quote, like the 60-page quote, and then 20 days of pre-sales to get the contract. If you are capable of understanding the business of your customer, and if you are capable of doing a good return on investment calculation, you are pretty close to pulling the lever over and take control. And that is typically what we would say is you want to be clear about what you put in the box, right? We talked about it earlier. It's not the product alone. It's typically other things that the customer needs to succeed. So, and return on invest, the business case is the first step, because it's your understanding of what they want to achieve, actually. So, and how can you help them achieve what they want to achieve if you don't know it? So you have to know it first so you can steer towards it. So what do you put in the box? You put in your product, of course. You may put in a handbook. Sounds basic. A lot of people don't have the handbook, right? So, and in terms of, if we think about
these days, Max, maybe a handbook is usually, and that's what we do now, Nowadays, a handbook can be video, for instance. Like you can put everything into video that you do, all that they need for the onboardings and everything. You can so beautifully put everything into video. Just sorry
Yes.
for the
Yes.
interruption, but that
Absolutely right. And what can handbook can have so many forms. It's really interesting. So for instance, if I sell an app that will help organizations communicate with their non-desk workers, like blue collar employees, people on the bench, right, or on the in the production or in the shop, in your retail space, right? How do you communicate with those people? So now you have this app, and it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it looks nice, you can have your logo on it, everything. Does that make the business case? It doesn't. It doesn't. And even if you can calculate the business case and people understand now, yeah, it's going to save us time, it's going to reduce attrition, less people will leave the company, less rehiring, it's going to save a lot of money, it's going to do something for you, like people will feel more involved. Like 6 months into it, you will wonder how you could ever have moved without it and so forth. Still, the customer will understand all of this logically. Do they know what they need to do the next day? No, they've never done it. So we encourage our customers to create a bulletproof plan. What are the 9 steps? What are the 3 big roadblocks? Customers will not know how to use it. They will not know how to communicate it internally, so people will use it. They will not know how to make it more valuable, and they will not know how to like measure their success. So now, and this is like asymmetric. We talked about this in another episode. This doesn't, for me as a vendor, it's almost a snap of a finger because I know these things. I know what the steps are. I know the 16 emails to send. I know that my CEO needs to do something to create, like attention and add some fire to the woods, right? So I need to put that plan into the box. Say, like, here's the 5 steps you need to take that will take you there. Here are the 16 emails, right? So I need to be clear about what is in the box apart from the product that will help the customer use the stuff in the way it needs to be used, like the implementation process, if you will. It sounds boring. And most organizations should have a change management in place, but ask them. Next time you talk to a customer, ask them, when was the last time you had an IT project that didn't meet your expectations? They will start laughing. Why do they start laughing? They have this all the time because it's hard. IT implementation is a difficult topic because it involves so many moving targets. There's uncertainty everywhere. Nobody knows how to communicate the stuff, right? So be helpful, be useful for your customer, put it in the box. You know it, right? It's asymmetric, it's easy for us. So then another thing, Simon Sinek says people don't buy what you do, right? They buy why you do it. So we're in this space. I mean, and everybody hates this, right? Because I think everybody can like most people I talk to, they can give you a great presentation of the golden circle, but when it comes to using the thing, doing the thing, it's really hard, right? So how do you do the why, right? So it's not so hard. In our case, the question you want to ask yourself is, okay, if that's the stuff in the box, what are the results you can create with that? What have we seen with other customers? Or looking back at the roadblocks, what are some of those roadblocks we need to remove, right? Not only in terms of implementing our stuff, but also the roadblocks that you have to get to your point B. Like customers thinking about an employee app, for instance, they will want to have a different atmosphere in the company. They will want to have their blue collar workers involved because they value them, they love them. They just couldn't reach them because there was no desk and no computer, but now they can because we're all running on these things here, right? The iPhones and iPads and Apple Watches and stuff, and or the Samsung alternative, which is, I'm sure, at least as good. So what are these results? That's also important. And when you talked about return on invest, I'm pretty sure that's an important part of that, right?
Yeah, very important part. Very important part to you can, most of the companies, and that can also be part of the irresistible offer. Not We don't call it proof of concept anymore, we call it proof of value. So if you say, hey, that's our business case, so we actually tell you we're going to achieve something, we're going to achieve a certain our ROI, maybe they not believe you, and maybe you need to prove that value within a short period of time. And you have to make sure, as to summarize what you just said, Max, is probably you need to figure out what are your success criteria that you need in that box for you to be successful. So for instance, in my former company, we figured, okay, what is important is integrations. We need to integrate into existing, we sold software as a service, we need to integrate with other technologies. So as users would access our technology way more, they see it way more in other parts. That was one thing. As you said, the change management part was one thing. We needed a project. We had other success criterias. And if you put that like single sign on one thing as a connection to the user base of the customer, one thing that lowers the barrier that you access technology. We knew all that, so we put it in the box. So you put it in the box because give that to the customer, that will help you increase the success. And if you have to do a proof of value because of a business case you calculated and the customer isn't sure whether that's actually something, whether it's actually true that you can reach that, put that in there. And proof of value can also be something in that box. It doesn't have to be. If you're really safe, and you will realize that if you're safe in a certain area, in a certain industry, you're really settled, you know that it works, customer won't need a proof of value necessarily. They can talk to the other customers. And that could actually be something else, Max. So like being part of an expert group from all the customers and form something like that, form a community with all that could also be something that you could put into that box.
Yes, and that's a thought that is typically inspired by the idea of having this package. Now we're thinking like, how can we improve it, right? How can we make it more valuable? And that leads to one of the most important questions in business, from my personal perspective, and that is the question: do you improve with every new customer, or do you like deteriorate? Does your business get better and more valuable with each new customer, or does it get worse? Like if you're doing consulting and you're doing something different for every customer, at some point you will send out the B team, and at some point you will send out the C team. And then is typically where it starts squeaking a little, right? So because then also you're now creating overhead. So you now have to charge for the C team 1.3 times what you had to charge for the A team in the good old days 2 years ago, right? So, but if you are focused on the package instead of yourself, and if you're focused on the customer's value instead of your delivery and feature, there's a good opportunity, and there's a chance that things will change with your perspective. So you're now really taking the customer's perspective, and you're putting stuff in the box that works, and you make it work because you add that plan and you add those steps and everything. So, and it's also interesting from my perspective, when you look further, you now have an idea what you put in the box. You have a clear idea what the results are. Like, what can this box create? What are all the beautiful things that this box can create in your business? Then we can also think about the business impacts, right? And there, like every customer, tell me your observation here. My perspective is that most customers that we work with have different currencies, right? Some want to win 2 new customers. Some want to double their revenue. Some want to triple their profit. Some want to increase the average deal size. Some want growth. Compound annual growth rate is the one number. Everybody has a different number. And it's easy to assume that you know the number, and that the number will be the number that you had with the other customer. But it's interesting to understand those perspectives, because if you know what's in the box and what can be achieved with it, now you can also tell your customer in their KPI, in their important numbers, what's that going to be, right? What is the effect that you will be able to measure? And what is that for Larry, Patrick?
I mean, that's I think in general it does depend of the persona. I think you should have knowledge about it. Doesn't I do agree with you that the currency is different for different personas of yours. It's the same usually for that's my experience. It's usually the same with the same persona in a different company. You know, when you get to know when you sell to a persona, you get to know those personas really well. And for instance, we have one persona is a compliance manager, and one of the obvious and very important currencies they have is amount of fines they get over the year. You know, that's a cost, basically a cost function. But others, we also have public affairs. They don't care. That's not their business. Fines, they don't care. They care more about costs that incur because they haven't seen a political business that impacted the company. I have a good example for this. So we realized, and obviously they didn't use our technology, but our technology gathers all the political and regulatory changes within Switzerland. Let's take that for this sake. Now we have all the big cigarette companies in Switzerland: PMI, BTA, and JPI. Right? Those three really big cigarette producers are in Switzerland. Now there was in Basel, in one of the cantons in Switzerland, they had a topic on the agenda, on the political agenda, that wanted to have a increased price for cigarettes on kiosks, like on small retail, not the big retail stores, but the small ones, which also open on Saturday and Sunday. The reason is because one thing that we probably all really annoyed until now are the small cigarette parts that lie on the ground, right? They're everywhere. That's one of the big issues I think there still is. So they wanted to reduce that by increasing the price from these shops, like a tax, an additional tax. Now there was this in Basel. It came on the political part in the parliament, and they made a decision, and the decision was by one person. One person more chose to have that tax in place. So in the end, the tax, it was voted for the tax, and the main reason is those big three companies, they didn't know that this happened. This was happening. They didn't know. They had this decision in one of the smallest cantons in Switzerland. Now you can imagine the person who's responsible for this from PMI, JTI, and BTA. You can easily calculate the problem out of this, because all the costs are transferred directly to the cigarette producers. The kiosks can't take those costs from the increased price. So that's a currency that we also see in our businesses. Obviously, time saved, always one that we have, and we also have risk is our big topic, and risks you can quantify sometimes not. It depends on how much experience we already have in these topics. But that's one example of currencies, and you definitely need to know those currencies. You need to discover whether that currency is important. One important topic regarding irresistible offer that you mentioned at the beginning, Max, is don't put anything in that box that you're not sure that it adds value to the person or to the one who is buying this. Don't just throw stuff in there, without knowing, is it even valuable for the other one? There are certain things, because your success criteria, but don't just give stuff away that you have a lot of work that doesn't have value for you, because it's a success criteria to be successful with that customer. It's similar to giving discounts without the customer even asking for discounts. I mean, we both know that happens so much that you don't know it. It's somebody on the other side. On the other side says, yeah, it costs too much, and the first thing you think is, okay, well, what's the discount this person needs, without first asking, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that you don't have the money logistically, or do you mean value, price, value, cost is not justified? That's very two different things, and you need to take the right road from the answer. So also, before you give something, ask the person, hey, if we had that in the box, is that valuable for you? If you haven't found that out first, you should have found it out probably already. But so that's an important thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, very good point. And interestingly, like a lot of organizations, and we wrote that in the intro to this session. Many organizations think they have a sales issue or a marketing issue, so like lead generation or the closing or the conversation is not good enough, when they actually have an offer issue. And like you said, like assuming you have an offer issue and then reducing the price or not understanding the customer's economics, that's something very important. And it's also important to focus on one thing, right? So if you have your offer straight and it's really good, you will know, right? You will know you have a good offer because it's you can see it in the feedback. When I met this point for the first time, I really had customers say, when I was asking for a decision, which is not easy for me, right? From personality structure and everything. So when I had to ask for it, they told me like, come on, this is a no-brainer. And that is exactly what I want to hear, right? And then I know that I've done my job. And when you say like you're getting these and that objections and people find stuff too expensive, I totally agree. That's a pretty good sign that you missed something earlier in the process, right? Because typically when you do what you just said earlier, the business case, look at it, individualize it. And that is also something I would really recommend, to individualize that. That's actually tip number, I think, 6 or so. So I think if you do this, and this is like not magic, right? This is not something where you have like to have this talent to create irresistible offers. This is typically like we love to do in the SalesMate team. We're making stuff mechanical. We're turning it into an exact science for you guys. Okay. So tip number 3 was tell your customer in their currency what they will achieve with all the results that you create with the stuff that you put in the box for them. Then also inspire with other customers' results. I think that's a big one. And it gets even better when you start talking about your customers being the hero and how they surprisingly used your product to get to point B and what you learned from it. It becomes a lot more easy and likable, right? Instead of showcasing your own superior intellect and how you developed, and after you founded Italy, you trained Chuck Norris, and then you invented this, and nobody wants to know that. My experience. I never met anybody. Even if I don't introduce myself, nobody asks, right? So, but you like similarities, stuff that is like them. Your customers, your prospects love to think about other people like them and how they are achieving things and how they used your stuff to get there. And all of a sudden, they will also want that Swiss knife, right? The Swiss knife is never the hero. It's always the MacGyver guy building an airplane out of this thing, right? With I don't know, vertical landing or something. So, and also other customers' results inspire the idea that you have done this before, that you know how to do it because you've watched so many other people do it. And that there is a result that is likely, because you can talk about anything, but as soon as you give it this context, all of a sudden it becomes imaginable. And then the limbic system will take it almost as reality. That's the power of the imagination. So we're talking about other customers. We're almost future pacing a little and getting our customers to imagine their own world with these results already in place. So that's beautiful. It also adds to your bulletproof plan because it gives it more gravity and more evidence. That's something very, very cool. right? So, and then tip number 5, and you add something whenever you feel like it, okay, Patrick? Tip number 5, I think, and that is something that is really disputable. I know it because a lot of people don't agree. I think it's the best idea and also the best economic investment you can make as a vendor is to guarantee a result. I know it hurts. It hurts to hear. It hurts to imagine because there's like 50,000 reasons why you shouldn't do it, why it's a bad idea, right? What do you say?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it's more it comes more often in B2C world rather than the B2B world, right? Because you're also, as a vendor, you're also quite unsure what to expect at this customer. Can that customer be so much different? And it's, when it's a deal of 200, 300 or a million, and you guarantee something to that big customer and maybe didn't exactly achieve it and lose so much, then it's scary. It can be scary. But I agree with you. I mean, it's one of, at least for sure, in the B2C world, it has proven to be really really powerful. The one you mentioned before, Domino's Pizza, with the 30-minute guarantee, or that you get delivered your pizza within 30 minutes or it's for free, right? That's one example that you were mentioning. And you said that that's what made the company successful, or how they got traction. And I think it's something really, really powerful and amazing to use as a salesperson. If you as a salesperson can say, guys, we guarantee this result we guarantee. Don't forget one thing to add here. Don't forget, and I just did that today with our biggest customer. Now we are finishing the contract. Don't forget to put in what the customer needs to do from their side to put in with the guarantee. That's a very important thing. Don't just give the guarantee. Also write in the contract, and you can do that, and the customers want to do that. Write in the contract what you need the customer to do, that you are able to guarantee, because it's not you yourself. So you lower the risk of, you don't know what to expect. So get commitment. Yeah, that's the word. So get commitment in return. And then guarantee is, I agree with you, one of the most powerful things. And it's great as a salesperson when you can say, we guarantee you the results. If you can have like specific results, that's sometimes also the difficulty for many companies. I think that results aren't as easily, when we were talking about business case and ROI, and sometimes it's really hard when you have like just saved time or increased efficiency to have any of these. So it's not always easy. We also know that, but there's always one reason the other person still bought. So they were believing. And in B2B space, it's really hard to get something through that costs a lot, that doesn't make any sense on a financial or on the currency level that you were talking about, Max. It has to at some point. You can't just justify. You can't justify it with your colleagues. It doesn't.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I remember I worked with a young guy in Munich. He was still a student, but this guy was so smart. And he was like a web designer, right? Now, what do web designers typically do? I mean, this is for web designers.
Did you meet young?
Again?
Did you meet your younger? Because you were saying that guy was so smart, I was just thinking of you. That could have been you.
Johannes, thanks for the flowers. Johannes. So, and he had this company. He's a web designer. Now, most web designers offer web design services, right? So, and it really hurts me to say that, but most people don't care, right? Nobody needs web design services. If people need it, they need it for a reason. And what is that reason? So Johannes understood that. And what he did is he created an offer, and the offer was called Websites That Sell. Now all of a sudden, I'm like a little compelled to talk to the guy, right? So, and think that a step further. If I tell you I can create a website for you that will create like 5 leads every month, and typically, if you follow my sales script, you will even convert 2 of these into customers. So the new website will generate 2 customers for you per month, guaranteed. That changes the game. Now, that doesn't mean you have to guarantee it under any circumstances. You can't. It's irrational, right? It's not even serious. You can't be serious about it, right? So, but what you can do is you can say like if, right? You can have these little stars and numbers. The point is that if you go a commitment, people will give a commitment back. And that eliminates one of the biggest struggles typically. Customers expect more commitment from their vendor, more care, right? More attention on the result. And the vendor expects the same from their customer. Now, who wants to give it first? And my experience is the one thing you can control best is your own behavior, right? You can probably not mind right your customers and change them. So if you say, hey, if we do everything I tell you and it's not going to be difficult, I'm not going to overwhelm you. It's just 13 steps, for instance, in our program, it's 13 steps. If you go the 13 steps, I guarantee you will earn $35,000 you wouldn't earn without. That's our power guarantee. Now, if you stop at step number 6, what will happen? I will encourage you, motivate you, give you more tips, more tricks, and get you to step number 7. If you refuse, you lose the guarantee. It hurts, but it's true. It's the same here. If we guarantee an outcome with a software, like for instance, our example with the employee communication, the employee app, I guarantee that your attrition will go down. Yeah, but of course you have to use this stuff, right? If you don't use it, if you don't implement it, if you don't send the emails to the people, to your team, uh, just buying the software and putting it on the shelf, we can guarantee that nothing will happen. So that this is not about being stupid or being crazy or being mathematically or financially illiterate. This is about being smart when it comes to building the commitment. Because when both parties are committed to the goal, guess what happens most of the time? Now they achieve it. And that's a big difference. And I could not do my business without these guarantees and the commitment they produce in return. That's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. It changed a lot for me. So, and then we have,
Beautiful, beautiful ending, I think.
yeah,
Because, or do we have another tip? Was that
yeah.
the sixth?
There's
Oh,
one more tip, of course. There's one more tip, of course, and that is something you said. Now you have this irresistible offer, and that is something I want that to be pretty clear. I would never suggest to, like, after the first conversation, you create this irresistible offer or you take it off the shelf because it's pretty similar for everybody, right? In the first step, never send it out to people. Walk people through. You want to walk them through. You want to say, like, this is what we put in the box, and here's a little bonus for you, right? Just for you. Here's the results it will create for you. Now we understand your currencies are, like, growth in users, compound annual growth rate, new customers, whatever the results are. Here are the results in your terms, right? Here's the guarantee we give you. Here's the bulletproof plan that will take you from A to B. Here are the customers' results, the typical customers' results, and how they've done it, right? They are so smart. We are overwhelmed. And you want to walk them through, and then you want to adapt it a little. You like use this ROI sheet, for instance. We typically, I love to do that. You use this ROI sheet and tell them, give me your numbers. These are experiences, yes. They are real numbers from real projects, yes. Do they matter to you? Probably not as much. Give me your numbers. We can add your numbers here and calculate it. So because that will take you all the way from your box to their outcome in the real life. And then you have your success criteria. So at the end of the project, no discussions, right? Either you have achieved what's on the list or not. And also, you can add that to use that to build commitment in the closing process. This important piece of the process, right? If we don't close, we cannot help them. If we don't close, no revenue, no new customer. I mean, that's obvious, right? So I think that's an interesting and important point that you added quite at the beginning, right? So that maybe the transferability from B to C to B to B is limited when it comes to this idea, right? the Domino's pizza guaranteeing 30 minutes delivery or the pizza is free, which took them from here to. And even
Yeah.
people said like the Domino's pizza, when you ask them, do you like the taste? No, they hated it. But they ordered it still, because when do you order pizza? When you're already hungry. So this 30-minute guarantee made the offer irresistible. In some other cases, it's the financing option. All of a sudden, people buy stuff they wouldn't have bought because now it's a monthly expense rather than a one-time investment. For instance, an iPhone or Adobe. I mean, Adobe is a good example. How many people used Photoshop and forgot to pay? And how has that number developed over time now with all these cloud subscriptions and everything? All of a sudden, people afford the thing. So, and that is very specific and individual. And the more you understand that, the better and more irresistible your offer will be. Even if you never get to the point where it's like a no-brainer, maybe. I hope you will. I know it's possible. These are the few tips that we have for you. Patrick, any closing words?
I think these were great closing words. I'm also happy about this outcome here with the 6 tips. We haven't planned for this. We haven't wrote that down in any way. So I think it's also going to be helpful for us. We should make this right now. 50 minutes gone, but
yes.
That was a pleasure, Max. Happy.
Gorgeous. So, if you're sitting in front of the screen now, live or later, drop us your questions. We are monitoring the chat on Facebook. We are monitoring it on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and we will answer your questions or even give you a shout out if it's not clear. And also, we're interested in your opinion. What do you think about this whole game? Is this something you want to learn more about? And with that said, we'll see you live next Tuesday with a continuation of our 10 commandments. There are 2 left.
Yep. Looking forward to that next Tuesday.
Patrick, it's appreciated after a hard working day. Thanks for taking the time. I hope the audience likes your perspective. And I think it's very valuable. Thank you very much. Talk soon.
Thank you.